You know, I was just talking to Emily, our guest tonight, and she was saying, I've been so excited about it, been so looking forward to it. And right before, hi, Rich Girl Meditation. So Mecca, our guest, was saying she was all excited, and then it's like right before it, you start feeling like, oh my goodness, what am I doing? And I was saying to her, just because I do this often, that does not mean that I just, can get out here and it doesn't make me feel any kind of way. I have to push by that every time. Hi, Emily. So happy to have you here. Girl, you about to do this. So, yes, I know, right? And this is what I was saying to her. So, Emily, by the way, this is Mecca, High Focus to Adapt. She is the person who helps me get my images that, even the ones that you saw for Wise Women Wellness, Wise Well Women Week. She helps with all of those things. And she also has a group where she shares, hi, Abraham Seed. And what I do, and this is for anyone who's thinking about going live, you have a brand and you want to be more present in that way. Here's what you could do, Focus to Adapt, if you don't do this already. I always think about who is that one person, who is that, in my case, who is that one woman who has been even praying and saying to herself, I just need some encouragement on this. Hi, Moo Brew. I hope I'm saying it right. And Silray. I think about who is that one person, and I speak to that person. I keep that person in mind, and I just trust God that something will be said either by me and my guests or by the people in the comments like you. That's why it's so important that we participate together. Thank you for those hearts, by the way. And then that person will be helped. That's what this is all about. We are not on Instagram to be entertained. That's not the type of people that come into my lives or participate with my page. These are people who are here for a purpose. You are looking to learn and grow. You're using it for that. And you're helping others to learn and grow too. And that's what Wise Well Women Week is about. That's what the Wise Well Women Lives are about. That's what Wisdom for Well-Beings is about. It's becoming the go-to spot. And I have been like, wow, look at that. It really is when I see us being mentioned in other places among way bigger influencers. And it's becoming, though, a spot for grown women, more mature, and I don't mean just in age, because we've got some Gen Zs and some alphas that come by sometimes too, okay? And the best one, which is Gen X, right? And some millennials, welcome millennials, and baby boomers too, because you can have people that are older, doesn't mean that they're grown, just means that they're an adult. But people who are mature or maturing spiritually, emotionally, and mentally, coming over here to learn and grow about ways to just do better in wellness. Tonight, oh my goodness, y'all, I'm so glad you're here for this, because this is something for everybody. Don't let the title of this fool you, My IVF Journey. Don't let it fool you, because anyone who is looking for something miraculous to happen, you need your faith restored, renewed, rejuvenated. This is the conversation for you tonight. I want to welcome our guest. Her name is Adedoyin David, Emily. She is a therapist here in Chicago, and she has a beautiful baby girl, Michaela. But the road to Michaela, that's what we're talking about tonight. I want you to give some applause by way of hearts as we welcome our guest. Let me find her in here. Okay, here she is. So Emily, let's do this because it's not letting me click you. I need you to, oh wait, I think this is it. Let's give some hearts, y'all. That's how we say applause. Yes, I'm circling. There you are.
I was like, uh-oh, did I do it right?
You did it.
Did it? Can you see me okay, or am I cut off?
I would say bring it down some because I see your forehead. Okay, a little now up, a little bit down, a little bit down. Because yes, okay, right there.
Hold on. I got to put something in place.
Okay. Rich Girl Welcome. Rich Girl Meditation says welcome. Seal Ray is sending you some beautiful hearts to kind with the stars and that vibrate and all of that. We are so happy to have you here. There are lots of stars going up. Hello, Keisha, and all of you who are coming in. Hi, Anna. Congratulations. Now, Anna, I may be fast forwarding, but do you graduate tomorrow, or if I just put you as a graduate and it's actually your class of 2021? Remember, y'all, I told you we've got Gen Alpha, we've got Gen Z, we've got Gen X, millennials, and baby boomers in our tribe. And I'm so proud of that and so grateful for it because it makes me feel good to know that no matter which woman or young woman comes in here, there's something for her to get. Yes. Hi, Dr. Jaira. So happy to have you here. So, Emily, tell the folks who you are.
Oh, well, I think you said it. I am Adedoyin David. I know I didn't pronounce it in the authentic way. I am Nigerian, a Nigerian American, that is. As Ms. Jones said, I often call her Ms. Jones. I am a licensed professional counselor. But I mean, other than that, I'm a child of God. I'm a wife. I'm a mother. Yeah, that's who I am.
And so much more, too. And I'm going to ask you to bring your camera down just a little bit because it's like right here. We just got this.
Okay.
I was telling one of my students today who graduates tomorrow about how in the 90s we had a show called In Living Color, and that on that show there was a skit that they did, The Head Detective or Detective Head or something like that. Gen Xers, do you remember that? And basically, it was a head that was Damon Wayans in shoes, and he solved all these crimes. Anyway, you were reminding me of the head detective.
Oh, is that better?
Yes, we're going to work with this, okay? Yes, yes, yes. So, Emily, let's just get right to it because there is so much to get out of this story. Again, guys, as you're watching, I want you to get in your mind what is something that you have been hoping for, that you've been believing God for, that you've been in faith for, but it has seemed elusive so far. Carry that with you as we go through this. So it's it's not a secret that we're talking about IVF tonight. And I'm curious to know though, when you got married, when you came into your marriage, were you wondering if you would be able to have a baby right away? Or did you not think anything about it at all? Were you thinking something might be going on?
So actually, even before marriage, I just knew I was going to have children. There was no question about it. And my mom, had children, and um, it was just a natural like progression that, one day I too would be married and I would also have children. So it never, occurred to me, when I was young or, as I was entering into that journey of being a wife, that there would ever be an issue with me becoming pregnant. I was single for quite some time before I got married. And
Tell them how long. And by the way, Kenneth, that's okay. He might be gone by now. Sometimes I have the guys stay. Sometimes I like shoo them out because I'm like, let's just have this with us. But that's a great guy. Check out his page, y'all. Kenneth Sean. Um, So yeah, you're married. We're gonna get married. We're gonna have fun together, but at some point we're gonna have kids. Now you said you got married later. What does later mean?
So, I'm always like the age and timeline thing, it's kind of always out the window. But I think it was probably around 35,
Okay.
when I got married. Which I mean, of course, is young, but in the sight of some people, some family members in particular, each passing year that I wasn't married, I was reminded, that I was getting older. And I was reminded that, specifically by my mom, bless her heart, I don't want to throw her under
How
the
you
bus.
said I was reminded
Yes, I was.
because the way that let me say this. I have had the pleasure of being around your family and other Nigerian families, and I've been told that culturally, they just have a way that they say things.
Yes, you're not getting any younger, basically. You're not getting any younger. And then, for my mom, I think she had me in her 30s, and
Mm.
she was told at the time that she was high risk. And so she always made a point to tell me that. But again, even with her saying that, and even with, my dad complaining that, none of his female children have babies yet,
Oh
it
gosh.
still was not like a scare tactic for me. It wasn't a means for me to say, okay, I better, you know, say yes to the next guy who shows interest in me. My thing was I wanted a quality marriage because unfortunately my parents are divorced, and I wanted to make sure that I didn't go down that path. So for me, it was more important that I took my time, to be with the right person. And so if that meant I would be 40 or 50 or whatever, then so be it. But I wasn't going to rush into it regardless of, the high risk of,
Mhm.
being pregnant at my age. So,
It's interesting you should say that because I've heard it said it's better to wait long than marry wrong. Focus to
ah,
Adapt says,
that's
yeah, Focus
right.
to Adapt says we have to remember it's all on God's timing.
Yes.
Yeah. So now you meet the guy and he's amazing. Was he aware of any fertility issues when you were dating? Did you guys talk about children, things like that?
Yeah, so we talked about children for sure. He didn't, have any qualms or any concerns in terms of on his end.
Mhm.
Again, to my point of, naturally the progression of my mom having children, and me having children. I'm sure he felt the same way that, there was no issue. And also on his end, his parents were also like pressing the issue of him being married, and you know I think he had said something along the lines of he wasn't going to try to marry someone younger, for that purpose
Mm.
of, the fact that, the older he is, and if he has, a wife who is about the same age or maybe a little bit younger or a little bit younger, the possibility of her not being able to conceive or whatever the case may be, that was not even a question for him. He
Mm.
was intentional in saying that he's not trying to marry someone younger. And I don't know necessarily if on his end, before he met me, his parents were suggesting that, but I just remember him saying that in God's timing, he will get married, and he was not going to be intentionally looking for anyone who was,
Mhm.
younger. So
Yeah.
yeah. So
So
yeah, we
you
we talked about children. The most that we did was we made sure that we got tested just to make sure that neither one of us had like sickle cell. Because I think he and I get this mixed up. I know there's one where you either have the trait or you are the carrier, and I know that one means that you actually have it, and then the other is you're a carrier, but And I'm not a doctor, so forgive me on that. But basically, we went to the doctor to get tested for that, because I know on his side of the family that was something that I guess was prevalent, and so we just wanted to make sure that we were okay in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you go into this marriage expecting that, and unfortunately, you know how people are. You get married, and the next thing people want to know is when you guys having kids. Stay out of people's wombs. I know that's nobody on this live, but people do that, you know. So you're married, and I'm guessing you have in your mind that you don't have to do it right away, but you're going to. So when around did you guys really start getting serious about let's try to make this happen? Let's have a baby.
Yeah. So, one of the things that we did in our courting phase was we attended like marriage seminars, whether it was going to a church where they had maybe like a guest who, was speaking specifically on marriage, or just counsel from our pastors. But one of the things that, stood out that we definitely wanted to do was we wanted to be sure that we at least spent like a year to ourselves, just to kind of get to know ourselves more, because he lived in Rockford, I lived in Chicago, so we would see each other on the weekends. But to really get to know each other as husband and wife, and of course having a child would just add more fuel to what it is basically. And so we wanted to just spend that quality time with ourselves, and so we decided that we were going to wait at least or at most a year, and then after that year was up, then we would get busy.
Okay, so now, and welcome those of you who just entered in. This is Adedoyin David. She's a therapist here in Chicago, and she has just an amazing testimony of how her IVF journey, as tumultuous actually as it was at times, actually did lead to a miracle. So that's what we're getting into. So now you are getting busy. Okay, and we will move right along here, but about how much into getting busy did you start to just wonder if this is not going the way you had thought?
Okay, so that's a good question. So, and this might be TMI, but
It's just women in here and we're grown.
okay.
And if my
So,
baby is still in here, if some of the Gen Zs are still here, you need to know this now. Because your mama actually probably won't tell you.
and
So,
I don't know if this had any bearings, but it was just something that was obvious. And it was just like, okay. And so basically what it was is whenever we would have sex, whenever we were intimate with each other and, he would ejaculate or he would come, usually it's supposed to like go inside of you and, maybe some stuff will spill out, but like everything seemed like it would just completely spill out, And so for me, I just thought, okay, how is, one to get pregnant if everything is coming out? I know it only takes one, but it just was weird to me that everything would just come out. And so I found myself sometimes holding myself up.
like a wondering.
What was that?
It was more of like a wondering. You just didn't think anything was
Wondering.
wrong.
I certainly didn't think like, oh no, this means I'm never going to have children. But it was just something that was like, what's that about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Anna, hang on in there, baby. So, little side note, guys, I teach sexual health to middle schoolers. So, if my students ever come in here, they have heard these types of words that you're saying, you know. But yeah, this is just a little bit next level if any of them are still in here. See, and this is also why, side note, it's important to me to have a page that is speaking the truth, my guest truth, but is also loving and welcoming and things too, and not something that your little cousin or your niece, you wouldn't want them to see. So I don't do or say anything that I wouldn't want them to see. So yeah, I don't know what she's doing over there, but I see her laughing hysterically. But yeah, you stay in there. Remember, we talked about these things. Okay. So we just
Ah,
didn't know that, hey, that's what it looked like. So you said that was odd, but you kept going. So what's the timeline looking like where you're like, wait a second, that's happened a lot now.
yeah, so I mean, it was that, and then I mean, the other fact is that I would miss my period. I mean, I wouldn't miss my period. I would have a period, which, is a sign that for most people, you're not pregnant. I mean, there are times where people are still on the period and they're pregnant. But in my case, you know, I would have my cycle and I wouldn't be pregnant. So, I guess that more so than anything was the thing that made me then question. And I think at that point, um, thanks to Google, when you Google things and you read literature and it says when you're 35 and up, if you're trying to get pregnant, you should, and has been longer than, I think they said 6 months, then you should go
Oh,
get checked.
okay.
And so I think maybe I gave myself that time frame of 6 months. And I
Mhm.
think when the 6 months was up, it was like, okay, let me go see what's going on.
And did you guys go together? And by the way, Carolyn says she's covering her virgin ears for some of this. So
Ah!
hang in there for those of you, because the thing is, I don't take for granted that there is someone who's on right now, or you who are watching are going to share this with someone who's really curious about the IVF journey. So now you guys decide to go. Did you go together or did you just go? What did that look like?
So I think I just, because the other thing is I lived in Chicago and he lived in Rockford before we got married. And then when we got married, he then moved to Chicago, but we knew that we were going to, be looking for a home. And so we ended up moving to the suburbs. And all that to say is I had an OBG YN, but then because of the move, I didn't really have anyone. And so when I eventually did look for a doctor, it was just a random doctor. It was no one that I knew in particular. And it was really just for me to seek counsel, seek advice on, what I should do because it had been 6 months. And so I went by myself.
And then what did they say?
So the first doctor that I went to was a male doctor. He's African American, and he was really like nonchalant about it. He almost made me feel like, oh, you're worrying over nothing. No big deal. It's been 6 months. Just give it another 6 months. These things take time. In so many words. And so, he's the doctor, and I just was like, okay.
So
Maybe
you're
I'm
still feeling really
overreacting.
encouraged by what he's saying.
What was that?
So you're feeling really encouraged by what he said.
Yeah. I'm just like, okay, I know what I read. That was Google, albeit, but it's just like, okay. He said, give it another 6 months, because I think I probably brought up the age factor or whatever. And he just seemed to still think that, oh, just give it 6 more months. And so that's what we did. We gave it 6 more months.
And then after those 6 months,
Yeah. And in that in between those 6 months, I started being a little bit more intentional. So they have these ovulation sticks where you basically test yourself every day to kind of like get that range of when you're most fertile. And the thought behind it is when the stick changes a color or it gives you two stripes. I can't remember, different sticks probably have different symbols, but basically there's a way where you know that you are fertile or that you are ovulating, and then you're supposed to, have sex within those within that time frame. I think it's probably 2 or 3 days or something like that. And so I was intentional about buying those ovulation sticks. And I think some people that I did kind of share, hey, this is what's going on, as the spirit led me. They also shared, that they had similar problems and kind of told me that this is what I did. And so someone even told me about taking my temperature, because also what happens is when you do ovulate, there's a rise in your temperature. And so that's another way that you can kind of check. But yeah, so I was a bit more intentional than I was probably prior to seeing the doctor.
And what's happening in your mind during this time, Emily, as we're on this second 6 months? You said I was more intentional. Were you hopeful? Were you worried? Was your mind consumed with getting pregnant at this time? Or was it just, all right, I'm ovulating, let's get it in? Like, what's happening in your head?
I was hopeful, but I was also reminded of like TV shows that from the past where, a woman is trying to get pregnant and like the woman is very aggressive towards her husband and just like, okay, it's time. And so it made me think back to like those TV shows, and I'm like, oh boy, I think I'm that woman now.
Right. All right, look, you see this? Get
Yes.
in the room.
Yes. And
Wow. Okay.
the thing that ended up happening with that was I ended up realizing that we were only having sex to get pregnant. And then once, that that ovulation period was over, it was just like, okay. So in a sense, it was more so focusing on making a baby. It wasn't about intimacy. It wasn't about enjoying each other. It was just about, okay, it's time to make the babies.
Yeah. How
Yeah.
does it affect your relationship?
Well, I mean, definitely it wasn't a good thing in the sense of intimacy. And so I think at the time, I don't think we were there in that mind space to reflect on what it was doing, in terms of our intimacy. I think we were more so just, trying to have a baby. And so, I mean, everything else was going fine in our relationship. I just think just that intimacy factor, which is a big factor, an important factor, that definitely took a downward spiral just in terms of being intimate with each other intentionally.
Knowing what you know now, and Carolyn is someone who said, she said, I'm going to share this with someone that I know needs to hear this because they need some hope in this area. Knowing what you know now, what would you say to that woman who is very much preoccupied with whether or not she's ovulating? Is it time, and all that kind of stuff? What would you say to her at these beginning stages?
So I would say to her what some people said to me. And basically, that was you need to relax and you just need to enjoy your husband.
Mm.
That's simply it. I mean, yes, there's a side where, I mean, I had an app. And then I was also regular for the most part. It wasn't like, 1 month I had a period, 1 month I didn't. Like it was very consistent. And so, I didn't necessarily need to look at my app and be so like rigid about things. I could have just like been more relaxed and just really enjoyed my husband. And that's the advice that I would give to people is just enjoy the intimacy, enjoy your husband. Don't make having a baby the idol, so to speak.
Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah.
That's powerful because a lot of times when people think about making something an idol, we had a guest on one time and she talked about people that she had made idols in her life, and achievements that she was working towards that she had made idols in their life. And so for you to say, don't make making a baby, being idle in your marriage is a very powerful statement. So, Emily, take us to now that this second 6 months is now up and you're still not pregnant. What is the conversation that you're having with the doctor now?
Yeah, so this time I said, okay, well, I need to find like a gynecologist who, will be like my go-to person. And so I found a gynecologist in my neighboring in the suburbs, and basically explained to her like the journey thus far. One thing I didn't note earlier was that to ensure that I didn't get pregnant, I started taking birth control pills probably like a month or two before I got married. And I had never taken birth control pills before. In hindsight, some people told me, dear friends told me that they wish that I would not have done it. One particular person was a nurse. I don't know if maybe she thought that could have affected, the eventual outcome of, trying to conceive for so many years. But I'm sure there are a lot of things that go into the birth control pills. Essentially it's basically suppressing, the ability to have a child. So I imagine that's something that's pretty powerful that, I'm ingesting daily. So, but that's aside. I just wanted to mention that. And looking back, I wish I didn't either. I wish she would have said something. I wondered if I would have listened. I don't know, but yeah. Anywho, so I spoke with her. I told her about the journey leading up until, our appointment. And she asked me a series of questions. I don't remember the exact specific questions, but just wanting to know like the history of like my parents, my mother, my siblings, my husband's parents, his, on his side. And so, initially, and I think she may have mentioned, that I would need to go through like a series of tests, and that my husband should also, get tested too. And, initially, and like most people probably do, I don't know, they mostly think of it as a woman's issue. They don't necessarily look at it as a man's issue. And so I didn't know how my husband was going to react to me telling him, oh, the doctor says you need to get tested. But to my surprise, it wasn't a biggie for him. But I just, initially, I guess I was just caught off guard, like, oh, okay. So
Well,
there is a male factor.
I understand why you would think that. In preparation for our talk, I was reading some studies that talked about how some women see fertility issues as being something that makes them less than a woman, less feminine, or something like that. And for men as well, they see it as, does that mean I'm inadequate as a man if I cannot produce sperm to get my wife pregnant? So it's so wonderful, and what a gift that you all did not then have to have that battle, with feeling inadequate. It was more so like, okay, this is where we are. Now what are we going to do? So then y'all get tested.
Yes, yes. So one of the things she did was she had me to get tested. So I think I got tested first. And so what the test looked like was, and I'm probably not gonna pronounce it correctly. I think it's called a HCN, and I wrote it down. Do you mind if I take a look at my notes real quick? I just want to make sure that I am saying it
Okay.
accurately.
If you're just coming in, this is Adedoyin David, Emily, and she's a therapist here in Chicago. And one of her truths, one of her stories is about her experience with IVF and what that ultimately led to. If there's a woman in your life that you feel like really need some hope in this area, I encourage you to share this with her. I will be posting this full episode as soon as this is done so they can catch it in IGTV as well. So thank you so much for being here. Taisha Joy, Christina Johnson, thanks for being here. Petty Soother Solutions, glad to have you here. Ramonica and Keola, thank you for being here. Refined You, thank you for how much you've been participating. We really appreciate it. Deanna, thank you so much for being here. Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that. I know that this is something that folks need, and she would not put this much care into looking that up if she wasn't thinking about that one woman who needs to know what that test is called in case she needs to ask her OBGYN about it. So you got it?
I do.
Okay.
It's a long word. It's called hysterosalpingogram, for short HSG.
HSG. Okay.
Yes, HSG. And basically, it's basically like an X-ray, but they're trying to look at your vaginal area, and they're looking into the cavity, and they're looking at like the shape, of the vagina. They're also looking at the fallopian tubes. They want to see if like there's any blockages, or they want to see if there's just anything that could prevent like someone from becoming pregnant. And
So they
so,
like send it as a camera through the vaginal canal?
so they
Or is
use
it like
like
a
this.
camera peel?
What was that?
Or is it like those camera peels that I've heard there's like a peel now that they.
It's not a pill. It's a tube that they use, that they insert, in the vaginal area,
Okay.
and then they use some kind of dye so that when they're doing the X-ray, the dye can show like areas of the vaginal cavity, and then you can see like the fallopian tubes and things of that nature. So they're squeezing like this liquidy substance into me, and I can actually see it too as they're doing it. And it's a little discomforting, but it's not unbearable.
Okay.
And so basically what ended up happening as a result of that is they saw, because they could only go up so far in the fallopian tube, meaning that there was some blockage there. So there was blockage in my fallopian tube on one side, and then on the other side, they couldn't tell what was there, but there was something blocking my tube as well,
Wow.
that the dye wouldn't go up as far. So they knew one thing for sure was that there was a blockage in one of my tubes, but they didn't know what that other area was. And so I ended up doing a second test, or really it was a scan, it was an MRI, where I had to go. I don't know if you've ever seen what the MRI machine looks like. It's really,
It's like they send you through.
Yeah, I was like, is it that serious?
Right.
But
That's the other thing I'm thinking in your mind, like, wow, how did I get here? We were just trying to have a baby. I thought
you just have sex and bam.
and now here you are laying on this thing.
Yeah.
Going through. So just to get through that part, like after the MRI, what did they determine was the situation?
So after the MRI, they did say that basically there were fibroids. So that was the other part of the tube that was being blocked off, was because of the fibroids that was there, which might explain, again, I'm not a doctor, I don't know, which might explain the whole semen coming out thing, probably, I don't know.
Wow. So, did you then have them removed?
So thank you for asking. So went back to the gynecologist and told her, or basically she got the report, and so she then referred me to a fertility specialist.
Okay.
Now, I don't know that it necessarily was dawning on me that, oh no, my tubes are blocked, this is happening, I can't get pregnant. Perhaps I did, but I can't really think, for certain that that was my initial thought. Um, but I was still being hopeful about the situation. And so my husband and I did go together to the second to the specialist. And she was just talking about all these tests that we would need to do, to test, our blood, and just a whole slab of things that she was saying. And I don't know, for some reason, I think maybe we were taken aback by it. And I don't know if I was maybe even offended, because I think at that point she was suggesting that I was infertile, which is a word that till today, I don't know, it just makes me feel some kind of way. And so on the other end, so, we took her advice in terms of just the paperwork that she gave us. But of course, we were definitely going to pray about what the next step would be. And on the other hand, I was talking to a friend of mine who had just had fibroids removed. And she was telling me about her surgery, and it was successful. And she was telling me about this great doctor that she that did the surgery that was not too far from where I lived. And so I decided that I was going to look into that doctor, because to me it was like, oh, they found fibroids. Fibroids just need to be removed, and then, we can have this baby.
Yeah. Okay.
Like, I'm not infertile, it's just a fibroid.
Right. And I hear what you're saying. We hear you as it relates to that word. I follow a couple of people who do work around fibroids and fertility, and they are even saying to not accept that you can call it your fertility experience, your fertility journey, but to not refer to yourself as being infertile.
Mm-hmm.
So, wow, Emily, this is so layered. So now we're like, I guess a couple years in now, and now you're having the fibroids removed, and then now you got to heal from that. So now we try again.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So yeah, we got it was successful. The surgery was successful. I think I may have had to wait a couple months to heal. And so the options that this doctor gave, who actually also was a fertility specialist as well, he said, you can try on your own. And then he may have said, if you don't get pregnant in like 3 months or so, then you might want to come back in, schedule an appointment, and then we could talk about other options.
Okay.
And the other option was basically IVF. And so we tried, and nothing happened, even after the fibroids were removed and they cleaned out the tube. So everything,
Mm-hmm.
as far as we were
You were
concerned, should have been like, just
right.
like a clear shot.
Yeah, you're so right. Petio Soother Solution says, don't accept a title God didn't give you. So, Emily, though, how are you feeling though now that your tubes, the fibroids, everything is supposed to be in excellent working order now, and now you're still not getting pregnant? What was your mindset at the time? What is your husband thinking? What is he telling you?
So my husband is very optimistic, very positive, very hopeful, very much a man of faith. And so, you know, I don't know that he ever doubted. If he did,
Mhm.
he didn't tell me,
Oh,
that, he ever doubted that we would get pregnant. But on my end, I definitely was getting discouraged, because it was like, okay, we did what we needed to do. So in addition to the surgery, I'm still like tracking the ovulation, because I hadn't gotten to the point where I just need to relax and just enjoy my husband. I was still like, like,
right. Get it up. Let's
um,
go.
right. And so, yeah, I was definitely discouraged. I was discouraged, yet I continue to be hopeful, because I just trusted God. And so, I just wouldn't allow myself to stay in like a rut. Um, I just I just knew that okay, next month is a new month, and so we just try again.
That's
Yeah.
such an important point. I'm glad you said it like that because sometimes, depending on the type of people you're around, they'll have you thinking that if you feel discouraged, then that means that you're not in faith. But it does not mean that at all. Faith is not a feeling. Faith
Yes.
is the substance, the evidence, the title deed, the confirmation of the thing that you're hoping for. It is perceiving that what it is that you're in hope for is more real than actually this thing over here that you're being faced with. And you don't have to feel that. So I just love that you said that. So if there's anyone here who's watching or who'll see this on the replay and there's something that you really are just trusting God for and it just seems like it's just not happening, you don't have to feel any particular type of way. So now, Emily, you guys have tried and tried. So now you're back with the doctor who is now ready to discuss with you some new options.
Yeah. So he went immediately to IVF. There are definitely other options that people can take depending on their situation. But for me, he said IVF would be the best route because of my age. He was just basically saying because I am getting older, IVF is a bit more straightforward because, you're taking the eggs out and you're taking the sperm and you're putting it together in this petri dish so that it can like grow into like an embryo and then insert it back into you. And so um he just felt like that the best situation for us. And so we didn't initially jump on board with it. We definitely took some time to think about if this was something that we really wanted to do. Because I guess the other thing is I really didn't know anything about IVF. The most I remember was in high school when our music teacher, I just remember him calling some of the children test tube babies. And he didn't mean that.
Hearing that in the
Yeah,
80s and 90s, people saying stuff like that. It was
yeah.
like it was an insult. And
Yeah,
there was this
exactly.
comedian, Robin Harris. Remember he would talk about babies, kids.
Hmm. Hmm.
But he also used to call people test tube babies.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah. So that's
wow.
all I knew about IVF is, oh, so it wasn't like
Mhm.
an enduring thing or a positive thing, from what I had heard. I hadn't done my own research or anything. And so we
Mhm.
needed to know a little bit more about that. And, sadly, I was concerned about what other people would think, if I decided to do IVF. I was
Mhm.
concerned of what people would say, what they would think, what my own family would say or think, just assuming that this might be something that's not acceptable.
Mhm. Did you think it meant something about you? Were you telling yourself that it meant something about you?
Uh, so the fact that I couldn't get pregnant, yeah, I definitely thought, why is it that, I am not being able to, why is it that I'm not able to do this thing that seems, so natural for people. Like, I know some people that, said that they wanted to have three babies and bam, 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 they came, and so it was baffling to me that, something that I thought was like a simple thing wasn't coming as simple for me.
What about when you would hear, because I know you're really active in ministry, you and your husband are, and so you all probably were even praying for people, for other couples, and blessing other people's children and things like that. What was it like for you when you would hear news of someone getting pregnant or someone having delivered a baby, or what were those things a challenge at times? And if so, how did you push through that?
Yeah, it definitely was a challenge. Number one, my husband is known as the baby whisperer. So he loves the kids. And so, the kids will run up to him. He would hold them. He would hold babies. And, eventually at some point, I found myself distancing myself from carrying babies when, someone had a baby in the church and they would, come back to the church after like their maternity leave. And so I found myself distancing myself and not like wanting to carry the baby. And so they would naturally give the baby to Shegum anyway, but I never like extended my hands to like hold the baby. And then, we are part of the ministry, as you say, and the team that we were on is the team where we do baby dedications, we do naming ceremonies, we do family oriented type of things. And so we found ourselves and we handle Mother's Day and Father's Day. Like it was just like, wow, like we have to do this.
Isn't
Yet and
that
still we're
interesting?
not experiencing these things that we are celebrating, other people.
Can we just pause right there? For those of you who are listening and you just heard that, what do you think about that? When you are there celebrating other people constantly
Because
for
my church is a
receiving,
fertile church.
yes, you're constantly, congratulations, baby showers and gifts and all this kind of stuff. And people, people do this. Happy Mother's Day. I get told Happy Mother's Day. You know what I'm saying? And all this kind of stuff. You being in that situation where you had to serve other people who were getting so easily, as you said, it seemed the very thing you wanted. When you look back on that, what do you think the lesson was, if anything, in that for you? And I'm curious to know, with those of you who are watching, think, what do you think that has been like for your own life when you're the one celebrating other people, wondering when it's going to be your turn? But Emily, what do you think the lesson for you has been in all that?
So, and before I answer that question, there was something that happened where I had to check myself. And what happened was I was visiting a friend's church who had a baby dedication. So I was supporting a friend who had a baby dedication, and she invited me to that. And so it was on a Sunday. And so that particular Sunday, we also had a guest minister at our church. And somewhere in the service, the guest minister had a word of knowledge where she said, someone is trusting God, like for a child, would that person stand up or something to that effect? I learned about it after the fact because my husband told me. And so, someone stood up and then my husband stood up. And so, the guest minister prayed for both, I'll say both of us. I wasn't there, but both of us. However, she specifically pointed out the other person. She was like, you're the person that I saw, So anyway, I was so like upset with myself that I wasn't at church that day because I'm like, maybe if I stood up, that's probably really ridiculous. But that was what was going through my mind. It was like, maybe if I stood up, the lady would have saw me. I don't know how I was trying to rationalize that, but I was really distraught, that I wasn't at church that day.
Like maybe this, maybe that. If I just do this, if I don't do that, then it's gonna happen.
Yeah. Wow. So anyways, what ended up happening was, sure enough, that particular person got pregnant. And I remember when I found out that she was pregnant, like I was excited for her, but at the same time, I felt some kind of way because it was just like, wow, like
here we are,
pregnant. And so I didn't like the way I was feeling. And I just remembered praising God. And I don't know, it probably sounds like a weird response, but I just started praising God because I didn't like the feeling that I was feeling. It was basically envy. And I didn't want that in me because I was genuinely happy for this person. And so I didn't want to feel that way ever about anybody. I always want to celebrate people. And so I was led to reach out to her and say that, you know, whenever you have a baby shower or whatever happens, I want to be a part of your baby shower. I want to help plan it. And so that released me. I felt such a release when I did that. I took the step, called her, told her, you know, this is what I want to do. And that just broke something whereby anytime anybody after that got pregnant in my church, because there were definitely more pregnancies, you know, I didn't feel envy. You know, I congratulated them. And so I guess the lesson in that is that while you are trusting God for like the thing that you want, you can still be encouraging, you can still be helping other people, you can still be focused outward as opposed to inward and thinking, oh, woe is me, you know, and feeling sorry for yourself, because that's not really going to do you any good to feel sorry for yourself. And so for me, being able to help other people, being able to encourage other people, because there were people that were in a similar situation as me that I found myself encouraging, like, we're going to get through this, you know, we're going to have babies, and, you know, we would pray with each other. So, I mean, taking the focus off self and, you know, focusing on someone else is definitely the thing to do.
Wow. And you were praying and helping people to get the thing that you also wanted, and you yourself didn't even have it yet. I mean, what a great lesson, because I'm thinking about so many other things too. Like I said, this conversation is just not about getting pregnant. And we're going to have to, this is just heads up, y'all. We're going to have to get out and then come back because our time will start counting down soon. So when we get into part 2, Emily, we'll talk about those different tests, because you didn't take, it wasn't a first, second, third, fourth, or fifth time, y'all. They went through this thing with IVF, and she'll tell you about that in just a little bit. But this is not just about having babies. This is whether we're talking about business, whether we're talking about believing for your marriage, healing in your body. I've been encouraged to believe for something bigger as it relates to my health and business and all this stuff too. So hearing you talk is boosting my faith too. So let's do this, guys. I'm not even going to let Instagram count us down because we got like 2 minutes. So Emily, can we have just a little bit more of your time where you walk us through, because someone's going to need this, the experience of the different IVF treatments, the setbacks, how you dealt with that, and then Michaela. All right. So we'll see y'all in just a second. That's okay, Carolyn. I'll make sure that I put this and part 2 on the replay. So Alicia and Ramonica, Deanna, Mama Tracy, Skater, Anna, if you're still here, Deanna, if you guys could just join us, give me like 4 minutes so I can put this one right here on IGTV. We'll be right back. Okay? All right. So Emily, come back when you see us say live.
Okay.
Okay. See y'all in just a second.